Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Saturday, January 4th, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. The weather in Riverside today will reach a mild high of 65.3 degrees, with a low of 48.1, making it a pleasant winter day in Southern California. Coming up, we'll examine the role former President Trump played in Mike Johnson's victory in the Speaker of the House election. Then, we'll explore the latest developments in the long-running net neutrality debate and what they mean for internet users. Finally, we'll discover fascinating new research about how bats take advantage of storm systems to help them travel long distances during their migrations. All this and more ahead on Alex's News. We begin this morning with a significant development from Capitol Hill, where House Speaker Mike Johnson faced a crucial re-election vote yesterday. For more on this story, we're joined by our congressional correspondent, Ethan Parker. Ethan, walk us through what happened.
According to PBS NewsHour, Speaker Johnson managed to secure his position in a dramatic first-round floor vote, Grace, winning by an extremely narrow margin of 218 to 215 votes.
That seems like a very close call. What made this vote so tight?
Well, Grace, NBC News reports that the Republicans currently hold just 219 seats in the House, giving them one of the slimmest majorities we've seen. Initially, 3 Republican representatives were opposing: Johnson, Thomas Massey from Kentucky, Ralph Norman from South Carolina, and Keith Self from Texas.
And how did Johnson manage to overcome this opposition?
According to Yahoo News, President-elect Trump played a pivotal role here. He made personal calls from his golf course to the holdouts, urging them to support Johnson. This intervention proved crucial, as both Norman and Self eventually switched their votes to back Johnson.
How does this compare to previous speaker elections, Ethan?
The Associated Press notes this was notably different from the 2023 election of Kevin McCarthy, which required 15 rounds of voting. Johnson secured it in just 1 round, though the drama was no less intense.
What about the Democrats' position in all this?
Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries of New York received 215 votes. It's worth noting that while Democrats had previously supported Johnson during legislative crises, they made it clear that such support wouldn't continue.
And what's the significance of this vote looking ahead?
This is particularly crucial, as we're now just 2 days away from Congress counting the electoral votes on January 6th, and 16 days from Trump's inauguration on January 20th. The vote also highlighted ongoing challenges for Republican leadership, especially regarding issues like immigration, federal spending cuts, and congressional stock trading reforms.
Thank you for that comprehensive report, Ethan. And now for our second story of the morning. A major court ruling yesterday has effectively ended a 2-decade battle over internet regulations in America. Joining us to explain what this means is our technology correspondent, Chloe Bennett. Chloe, what exactly happened in Cincinnati?
Grace, yesterday the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit delivered what many are calling a landmark decision, ruling that the Federal Communications Commission, or FCC, doesn't have the legal authority to restore net neutrality rules. For context, these are the rules that were first put in place under Obama in 2015, and later repealed during the Trump administration in 2017.
Can you explain what net neutrality means for our viewers who might not be familiar with the term?
Of course. Net neutrality essentially means that Internet service providers, or ISPs, have to treat all Internet traffic equally. They can't slow down or block certain websites, or charge more for faster access to specific content. According to court documents, the Biden administration had tried to bring these rules back by classifying broadband as a public utility under a law from 1934. But that's what the court has now blocked.
What's been the reaction to this ruling?
It's been quite mixed, Grace. According to Reuters, Brendan Carr, who's set to become the new FCC chair, celebrated the decision, calling it the end of what he termed Biden's internet power grab. However, the current FCC chair, Jessica Rosenworcel, is calling on Congress to take action, stating that Americans want an internet that's fast, open, and fair.
Are there any real-world examples of why these rules matter?
Yes, there are several concerning cases. According to Bloomberg's reporting, during the period without federal net neutrality rules from 2017 to 2024, there were multiple instances of service throttling. One particularly troubling case involved Verizon throttling the Santa Clara County Fire Department's internet service during California wildfires. The Washington Post also reported cases of Sprint throttling Skype traffic, and major carriers like AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon selectively slowing down video streaming services.
What options do consumers have now?
Well, according to the Los Angeles Times, several states still maintain their own net neutrality regulations. California and Washington have comprehensive laws in place that prohibit ISPs from blocking legal content or engaging in paid prioritization. Oregon has some protections as well, though not as extensive. The real focus now shifts to Congress, which could potentially create federal legislation to establish permanent net neutrality principles.
Thank you for breaking that down for us, Chloe. Here are some other headlines. The U.S. Department of Transportation has fined JetBlue Airways $2 million for chronic flight delays on East Coast routes. Half of the fine will be distributed to affected passengers. The delays, occurring between June 2022 and November 2023, affected flights between New York's JFK Airport and several destinations, including Raleigh-Durham and Florida cities. A major winter storm is moving through the United States, bringing snow, freezing rain, and bitter cold temperatures. The system, affecting the Central Plains and regions to the east, is expected to create hazardous travel conditions and possible blizzard conditions in some areas. In a tragic New Year's Day attack in New Orleans, a U.S. Army veteran, identified as Shamsud-Din Jabbar, drove a pickup truck flying an ISIS flag into crowds on Bourbon Street, killing 14 people and injuring 30 others. 2 police officers were wounded before Jabbar was fatally shot by law enforcement. The FBI confirms he acted alone. The Miami Heat have suspended star player Jimmy Butler for 7 games and announced plans to trade him, marking a significant shift in the team's roster strategy. A devastating fire at Plaza Latina Shopping Center in northwest Dallas has resulted in the deaths of 579 animals, mostly small birds, along with hamsters, 2 dogs, and 2 cats. The animals succumbed to smoke inhalation. While no humans were injured, the 2-alarm fire caused significant damage to the shopping center and required 45 firefighters to contain. And now for our third story of the morning, we turn to a fascinating discovery about how bats are using nature's highways in the sky. Joining us now is our science correspondent, Ethan Parker. Ethan, tell us about this remarkable research coming out of Germany.
Thanks, Grace. According to new research published by NPR News just yesterday, scientists at the Max Planck Institute of Animal Behavior have uncovered something quite extraordinary about nocturnal bats and their migration patterns.
What exactly have they discovered about these bats?
Well, these clever mammals are essentially hitchhiking on storm winds during their long-distance migrations from Switzerland to Poland. The researchers tracked 71 female nocturnal bats and observed what they're calling bat fireworks, dramatic mass departures that happen when storm fronts approach.
That's fascinating. How do the bats know when to take off?
The scientists found that these bats can detect dropping air pressure and rising temperatures, telltale signs of approaching storms. They use these environmental cues to time their departures perfectly.
And how are researchers able to track these bats so precisely?
They're using some incredibly sophisticated technology, Grace. The team developed specialized lightweight tags that weigh just 5% of a bat's body mass. Instead of GPS, these tags connect to a wireless network similar to our cell phones, compressing an entire day's worth of data into tiny transmissible packets that can be sent across Europe.
What kind of distances are we talking about here?
The numbers are quite impressive. In a single night, when riding these storm winds, these bats can cover up to 400 kilometers. Over their entire 46-day migration period, they can travel as far as 1,116 kilometers. That's significantly more efficient than their normal flight speed of about 50 kilometers per hour.
And I understand there's a particular challenge for female bats?
Yes, that's right. Many of these females are pregnant during migration, so they're facing a delicate balancing act. They need to time their journey to take advantage of these storm winds before their pregnancy makes flying too demanding.
Are there any practical applications for this research?
Absolutely. This research could have significant implications for wind energy companies. Understanding these migration patterns could help them better position wind turbines and adjust their operations to reduce bat fatalities.
Fascinating stuff, Ethan. Thank you for bringing us this story.
Thank you, Grace. And just to note, this research comes to us through reporting from NPR News, with additional details from the Max Planck Institute of Animal Behavior's published findings.
That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Sonnet 3.5, the Perplexity API, and the Google Cloud Text-to-Speech API. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.